Hello. So I got some new books from August, and I got quite a few actually. The first one is Gregory Clay's. I guess this is like a Marxist socialist historian, Marx and Marxism. I was just in the bookstore and this book caught my attention, and I went and looked in it, and it's actually quite detailed. It goes over like the different stages of Karl Marx's thoughts, different varieties of communism, different principles that different socialists and communists subscribe to. I got this primarily because whenever I talk to a socialist or a Marxist or communist, they always have different takes or interpretations or theories. So I want to find out why that is. So I'm going to actually delve into some of the history of that stuff. The next one is The Anatomy of Fascism. I hear people talk about this a lot, and there's always this point brought up that only Germany and Italy were truly fascist. And basically this book is going to try and highlight some of the principles that constitute fascism, because a lot of people say that it's either just authoritarianism or just totalitarianism. But basically he's going to go over all the principles involved with it. And this book was really cheap, so I had to get it. Fooled by Randomness by Taleb. I've not read this yet. I haven't even read any of Taleb's books yet, but because I'm going to do a deep dive into Taleb, I see why people like him. I don't know. I got this book. The Myth of Mental Illness. This is going to be an exciting book to read, actually. Basically, the premise of this book is that there are behaviors that psychiatry has diagnosed as a mental illness, and as a result, we've abdicated responsibility from them, so we've basically made it so that they're not responsible for some of their bad behaviors. He gives a good example of maybe, I don't know, witchcraft, saying that witchcraft is a mental illness. If someone hurts somebody by doing witchcraft, then they're not responsible because it's diagnosed as a mental illness. Philosophy of Pharmacology, or Psychopharmacology. I don't know actually why I got this book. I got it from Amazon. And basically, yeah, it's just a philosophy of psychopharmacology. I think a lot of it focuses on psychotropics. There's 2 chapters in psychotropics. There's another chapter that explains, provides a naturalist explanation for pharmacology. But I don't actually know why I got this book. Playing by the Rules. This I'm excited to read. This book very much reminds me of the concept of law, because it goes over varieties of rules and makes nuanced distinctions between rules, which the concept of law does for lawful orders, decision making and generalization, rules and law, the interpretation of rules, the reason for rules, the force of rules. This should be a fun book to read, because it's going to provide you with a lot of nuance around the concept of rules. By the same author, I believe. Schauer. The same person. He's going to talk about the force of law and how basically he thinks jurisprudence is going away from using coercion as a justification for rules, and he's basically bringing back the whole might makes right thing. Maybe that's a straw man. Maybe he's not saying might makes right, but maybe it would be saying is that law uses force, and ultimately that's the justification for laws, is the use of force. This book I got in a bookstore. It's a really old book, but I never read anything about Intel, and I've heard things that are good about Intel from secondary sources, not from about Intel itself. People said Intel has the most sustainable chip production. They have the low environmental imprint. They've done important things for chip development. So I wanted to read about Intel. That's why I got this book. On collaborations, I don't know, I got this. I thought it'd be an interesting read. Yeah, there's no particular reason. I thought it'd just be interesting to read this. The Harvard Business Review books tend to be decent. Adam Smith's Theory of Moral Sentiments. I thought I already had this. I found it in a bookstore, and I was like, let me see if I have it. I have a little app where I check my library for book sale, and I can scan the barcode and see if I own it. And apparently I didn't have this, so I bought this. But yeah, this is a really important book. This will probably be one of the books that helps you understand capitalism at its core, that people pursue their self-interest, and then Smith would carry that over to economic behavior. People are going to sue their self-interest in economic behavior, such as bartering. But yeah, this will be a fun book to read. I didn't realize I didn't have it. Supply Chain Finance. I got this because I thought it would be cool to read. There is a problem with the book. Even in the bookstore, I realized that this was going to be a problem, which is the language in the book is terrible. It's like overly abstract, not concrete. But if you can get past that, it'll be okay. It's just about like, maybe you could say a good example would be like retail stores having to basically finance products and looking at how to basically offset risk for putting in too many products that aren't going to get bought and so on and so forth. Why zebras don't get ulcers. This is obviously, I saw this in a bookstore and decided to get this. I watched his lectures and I read his other two books. I haven't read this one because I was never particularly interested in stress, but I believe this is Guide to Stress. It's a stress book. It's just basically like the endocrinology of stress. And so I will be excited to read this because it's a Sapolsky book and everybody loves Sapolsky. On strategic marketing, again, it's just like there's a bunch of these Harvard Business Review books now on like every bookstore. They're all over the place. And if I come across one, like basically if a bookstore doesn't have books that I'm really interested in, but they have these, I'll just get one off of the heuristic that I haven't read a bad one so far. They tend to be good. The Third Pillar. This is actually quite an interesting thesis. The book has an interesting thesis. I don't know if the book's going to be good or not. I got it because of the thesis. And the idea is that communities on like the outskirts of society are being neglected because most big government policies and most big businesses tend to focus on big cities or like big providers of GDP. And so, yeah, how the markets and the state leave the community behind. That's what this book is going to talk about. And I think that is an interesting phenomenon in general. So I'll be interested to see what he has to say about this, or she. Salt, Sugar, and Fat. Somebody talked about this book, and I was like, well, that's an interesting title. Let me go look it up. And now I want to read more into like food politics, food ethics, the economics of food, even the like just how the products are made. And this one's going to be interesting. I know like the food industry does a lot of shady things when it comes to food, especially if you compare like, have you ever eaten Nutella in Germany versus Nutella in America, or like drank Coca-Cola in Germany versus Coca-Cola in America? They are completely different products. They just have the same brand. So I'll be excited to read this book. Maybe this will help me never ever eat junk food ever again. Roy L. Walford Maximum Lifespan. So this guy did like a crazy experiment where he like put him in, I don't know, it was like 10, 20 people or something like this, in like a biodome, and they basically had only 80% of their nutritional needs met. So like basically they were at a 20% caloric deficit. This guy was a big advocate for like caloric restriction, increasing lifespan. His science isn't up to date because he died, obviously, but these are considered like OG anti-aging / lifespan books. This is another one by the same person, right? I don't know if it's the same book. I know they're different, but I don't know if it's the same book. I don't know. I got both. I'll read both and see what he has to say. Maybe he'll convince me. I've heard critiques by Longo, who was like his student, saying that his studies are flawed, and there's a debate about like even Walford died from some kind of, I think it was some kind of cancer, or something like this, and the primary cause of that was stress-induced, and there's new research that suggests that if you're in a caloric deficit for too long, that you actually release more cortisol. And so Longo advocates for fast mimicking, where you only do like a 48-hour fast once a month or once every 4 months or something like this. And he said you can get the same exact benefits of caloric restriction. Yeah, there's a lot of debate. I'll read these to see what I think about it. But Longo's convinced me that the constant caloric restriction is not good. Anyways, those are the books I got for August. Let me know if you want me to buy any books that you think I should read, but these will keep me busy for a while. With that being said, bye bye.